Welcome into the Men Are Forged podcast. I'm your host, Cartwright Morris. Through this podcast and through my coaching services as well as my men's mastermind, I help high performers pursue a higher quality of life. This is my life mission, to help men step into who they're called to be and be a more well-rounded and intentional man in their business, in their family, and in their community. If that interests you, you can go to menarforged.com to find out more information about my high-performance coaching, as well as some of the other services I provide. That's menarforged.com.
Hey guys, Tim Williams here, the host of the Thrivehood podcast. Thrivehood is a relevant life roadmap for boys and young men who want to thrive as they mature boldly into manhood. I'll be bringing you a dose of just good old seasoned wisdom and some offbeat humor to a variety of topics that'll both challenge and motivate you to become the best version of yourself. Check it out at thrivehoodpodcast.com.
All right. Welcome in the Men Are Forged podcast. I got a great guest today. Man, he's got, and if you check out his bio, he's an entrepreneur, he's an author, he's a mentor, he's a coach, but he's also a collaborator. And I love that. And his new book coming out is Letting Go of Baby 2, which is a unique take on just a father's perspective of losing a child. So welcome in, I hope I get this right, Tsombawi Knibye Jr. Close.
Very close, yes. I'll help you out there. Tsombawi Knibye Jr.
Yes, sir. Great name. Just unfortunately, my skills are limited.
Unfortunately, it's not as sexy as Cartwright, but it's all good.
Yeah. Oh man. But it's funny is you get around anybody who English is not their first language, they can't say Cartwright for whatever reason. So.
Oh wow. Funny thing for me, I learned how to say Cartwright when Bill Cartwright played for the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me the whole time.
My nickname in college, I had friends who called me Bill because of Bill Cartwright.
You don't shoot like him though, right? He's got that ugly.
No. I keep the elbow in. Okay. Tsombawi, I think I said it right. I just want to call your name right. But anyway, yeah, man. So just give me, man, I really love that word collaborator you put on the end. So I'm really curious just, why you would call yourself a collaborator, especially in a time I know when we need to collaborate more, be in community more, whether in business, church, whatever. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious why you called, that was one of your titles on your bio.
Yeah. So for me, being an entrepreneur, it's highly important for you to collaborate because as an entrepreneur and going through that journey, it can be very lonely as an entrepreneur. And as entrepreneurs, we find ourselves in places where we seem like we're the only one that thinks like this, acts like this, says things that in particular. And so I found a tribe of entrepreneurs that kind of get me, to a degree from an entrepreneur standpoint. And so when I kind of got into that community, I wanted to also, help other entrepreneurs, collaborate and to be able to find their tribe as well. And my tribe may not be your tribe, but you may end up finding your own entrepreneurial tribe that you can, get into people who you can talk with and have conversations with. At the same time, collaboration is good for all of us, and I think for me, there's a difference between collaborating and networking. Networking is just, let me get some numbers and some names of someone that I can, call on when I need something, whereas, collaborating is, hey, how can we all win in this rather than it just be me winning and me just getting from you, so.
Yeah, man, that's good. Yeah. And man, that's just a great word. I think that's something that, man, we need to step, especially as men, because we love to be on an island and think we got it all by ourselves. But man, so I appreciate you saying that. So yeah, I would love to just dive in your story. Really, just give us a little background on your upbringing. When did you get that first entrepreneurial itch to kind of start your own thing and not go the route where everybody else is going of getting a job and just grinding? So, I would love just to get a little insight into, your mindset into becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, for me, I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. Anyone who is from New Jersey, you know that when you say you're from New Jersey, you say I'm from Jersey. You don't say New Jersey.
Right.
Anyone says, oh, yeah, I'm from New Jersey. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You moved to New Jersey. You're not from Jersey. So I am from Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey, born and raised. I lived there for about 20 plus years of my life. Had mother and father in the household. I have a younger brother and an older brother that I have. So I'm the middle child. My mother had no girls. So my wife is like her daughter that she loves and treats her like a daughter and all that stuff, which I love too.
Who's from Alabama, right?
Who's from Alabama, yes. But she's not just Alabama. She's from Birmingham, not just Alabama.
Birmingham, that's right.
That's Southern hospitality. That's right. What I love.
Yeah.
But so I went through public school my whole life. Graduated, went to college. For me, college was one of those things where I kind of got bored very easily. Not because I wanted to, that I had the entrepreneurial itch. I just, you hear about college when you're younger, and as you grow up, you start saying, all right, I'm in high school now, I got to prepare for college. And I kind of went to college and I felt like I had done everything that I thought I should do in college, whether it's, going to a party or, studying or staying up late and whatever you do in college that sounds fun, but also is a part of what your education is for. And I switched majors, I think a few times. I was kind of just going back and forth between business management. And then I went to English. I thought, I could be someone that writes, speeches for people or the president. I'm good at, editing and English and grammar. Mm-hmm. And then I flip-flopped back to music business eventually. And because music was kind of like my first love other than basketball. And making a long story short, I ended up, wanting to I got the entrepreneurial niche probably when I was... Technically, I got it around 19 years old, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I thought music was going to be like the main thing. And then I'm like, I'll play basketball in the NBA. I'll play there a few years, get some money up, and then I'll start my music business. And so from all that kind of went like the total opposite way of that. I ended up, of course, had like the first 10 years of my life mapped out what I was going to do. None of that happened, of course. And so I ended up, getting a job like everyone else does. And again, nothing wrong with getting a job. You got to pay the bills. You got to do what you got to do. You got to live. And you do that. And so the real itch for me, came probably, about, let's say 10 years ago. I'm 40 years old now, 30 years old. I got the real itch to really, be an entrepreneur. And so you start out on this journey and, it's a journey that takes time, especially if you are unsure where, you're going to go at in the industry, what industry you're going to go into, what niche. And so from that time to now, I've been, doing this for a good, strong 10 years now. Been doing things before that as far as entrepreneurship, but just, kind of trying to find my way. What do I want to do? My father instilled a lot of, my work ethic in me. So for me personally, I believe I work hard and I'm hard on myself, but I've also learned that, mistakes and failures are a part of the journey, and I have to learn to accept those, learn from them, and then, become better as the journey goes on.
Yeah. So would you say that's what your father really instilled in you? Was that kind of like,
he instilled resilience in me,
yeah.
Especially as a man, to be resilient. Life's going to throw you curveballs. It's going to do what it's going to do. Mm-hmm. One thing I like to use is that, life's not going to tell you what it's going to do the next day. It's not going to say, hey, tomorrow at 4:00, I'm going to punch you in the face. It just does it.
Right.
Out of nowhere, and you're not prepared for it. So, when life happens, you have to, make adjustments. You have to, take the plans you have, get rid of those plans and do some new plans and readjust your schedule. And so I had to learn how to do that, and not just learn how to do it, but learn how to do it knowing that that's what life brings you. When you're in college and high school and your parents are your guardians, they teach you about what life is, but then you don't really know what life is. So you start experiencing it. Mm-hmm. And once you experience life, now you're like, oh, this is what my parents meant. Oh, this is what so-and-so said. This is what life is all about. It's kind of, something that all of us need to experience because, we say experience is the best, teacher, but not all things are meant to be experienced, but life itself is definitely meant to be experienced.
Yeah, that's good. So a real quick question, really important. Being a New Jersey guy, were you a Knicks fan growing up?
No, I was not. Okay. I was and am, and until the end of my days will be a Laker fan. And now let me clarify, because I want people to understand. People always say, "Oh, you're just a band," right? No. I've been a Laker fan since I was 5 years old.
Okay.
So I came along with the Magic era.
Yeah.
I came along with the Eddie Jones and Nick Van Exel and Cedric Sabalas era.
Yeah.
And then Kobe finally came and things started turning around. And then Shaq came and things turned around and we started becoming the team we were supposed to be again.
Yeah.
And then, Kobe's, last his final years, with Gasol, that was a good team. And so now, we've got LeBron now, and that's great. I'm not a LeBron fan, but I'm also not a LeBron hater.
Okay. All right. Fan. You're one of the few right in the middle.
Yeah. So I'm like, my thing was when LeBron, like, look, when you come, there are expectations to being a Los Angeles Laker. Mm-hmm. And the fans will make sure you either meet those expectations or you don't. Mm-hmm. And so, when I say I'm a Laker fan, I am a Laker fan through thick and thin, no matter what. That's what I am.
Gotcha. So you love Showtime. You love the up and down the court. You don't love the half court game.
No, I mean, look, my thing is, I play basketball, so half court game is important. But my thing is, the fast pace, fast break points. Mm-hmm. Those are the points that can help get you up fast. I mean, if anyone watches the Golden State Warriors, they can be up on you in 30 points in like 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. So fast pace, you can't keep up. You can get blown out real quick.
So you must have loved seeing them beat up on Boston.
Oh yeah. I had a very salty taste in my mouth when Boston beat the Lakers in Kobe's first round with them. I'm like, these guys, like, seriously? And then they got their revenge. I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. They didn't have the crown for too long.
No, they didn't.
Yeah. So jump a little back into your story. Yeah. I mean, so I'm really kind of curious when you kind of stepped into that entrepreneurial mindset, especially for those entrepreneurs out there, those young ones that are trying to figure out, how did you define success early on?
Wow, that's a good question. Yes. So early on, I defined success through other people. So I'm like, well, this person's doing this and they have this much money and have this many employees or they've got this going on. So this is the definition of success for me, which for most people who are defining success for themselves, they're going to define it through someone else. Initially, because you have someone you look up to that you want to be like, or you want to pattern yourself after. And so you're going to pattern your life to kind of pattern that person. And so along, my journey, it was always looking at what someone else was doing. Like, oh, what are they doing over there? What are they doing over here? What are they doing? And in doing so, it allowed me to look at myself in more of a negative way than a positive way, not necessarily looking at like the process, but the minor progress I was making. And a lot of times we don't see the progress in the process. We just see like, this is where I'm at and this is what's going on. And we focus on all the negative things, not the positive things. And the things we make the biggest in our lives are the things we don't really focus on. So if you're focusing on the negative, that's what's going to be the biggest in your life. If you're focusing on the positive, that'll be the biggest in your life. And so for me, I had to learn how to define success for myself personally. And then see success has a definition and others have what success means to them, but what does success mean to me? And I had to learn that there were little small successes that I had that were leading me to the next major or big success. And so for me, it's a matter of ultimately for me, I allow Elohim to really define my success. What does success look like in his eyes and what is his plan for me from a success standpoint?
Today's episode is brought to you by Thrive Marriage Lab. If you want your marriage to thrive, this is a great opportunity to you, because strong marriages are the bedrock of strong churches, organization, families, and community. This is a 12-month pathway for any of you that are looking to really have weekly engagement with experienced marriage counselors, not just one, but many. So go to restory.life/thrive to get on the waiting list for this great program that starts in April. That's restory.life/thrive. And make sure you put the word Forge in the promo code to receive a discount on your monthly fee. Now, back to the episode.
And when did that become part of your journey? Was that something that your faith really connected you early
It
on in
always-
entrepreneurship, or did that grow, that start realizing, man, I got to trust someone outside of myself if this is going to work?
It's always been a part of me. It's just a matter of, where's your trust level at, or do you trust them at all? And so it's funny you ask that, because this past, I don't know, I would say maybe 6 months, I would say, I've kind of developed another level of trust when it comes to Elohim. It's like, I have to, do I fully trust him, or do I partially trust him? Do I trust him with just this and not that? Like, do I want control of this, and then he can have control of that? It's a full trusting. Now, when you say full trusting, we have to put the work in. We just can't sit back and say, all right, you do it all, and I'm gonna sit back here and just wait. Like, no, you got to put the work in. And so I am learning, and will continue to learn, how to fully trust him, but to also make sure that I'm doing my part to make sure that, I'm showing him that, hey, I'm trusting in you, but I'm also doing my part. I'm not going to do your job. I'm going to do what you gave me, use what you gave me. And then wherever I fall short at, I'm going to trust you to make up, that shortcoming.
Man, that's a great way to put it. And when you say Elohim, just for the clarity, for those who don't know who that is.
Got you. So a very, short clip. So Elohim, in from the Hebrew perspective, is this equivalent to the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And so when you say Elohim, you're talking about them as one. There's a whole Hebrew teaching that I don't do, but that I've learned and gone through in a course. But Elohim is really talking about the Most High. For all you out there, you may say God, but Elohim brings them all together. And that's like the short snippet version of what I'm saying. So.
Yeah, that's good. Elohim, man. Yeah. It's like I think in the tradition is a sacred name. You couldn't even say his name out loud or something. Elohim. Yeah. Anyway, that's cool. Yeah. So, I really would love to just jump back in your journey of understanding, really. So yeah, entrepreneur, you're a man of faith. You're a man that believes there's someone acting on your behalf, even beyond your own effort. And then yet family is a big part of who you are. How did you really balance that of really growing a brand? I know you're in music, you're in podcasting, and you've got this great business. How did you balance all of that of being a father and a husband amidst of really wanting to grow a business?
Well, I'll say this: having a wife is a very important part of that. Yeah. Whether you look at it positively or negatively. And if you look at it more positively, that'll be the biggest thing that you can think of. And so, being married first before we had children, that was the biggest thing for me, because it was always, I go to work during the day, I come home, I go to work. You know what I mean? I'm in the basement, I'm working on the business, to keep things moving and going. And then when the children came along, it was kind of the same routine, but I had to, of course, before they did, I had to make time for her as well. And then have time for the business. So there's a lot of late nights, after midnight, staying up, doing stuff, having to get up the next day, go to work. Then when the children came along, I had to make time for her, time for the children, and then also work on the business as well, still working. And so it was a matter of me having a sit down conversation with her, as her saying, hey, I know you're building this business. It's like, but where do we fit into all of this? And I had to be like, well, I thought that I was fitting you all in. And for me as a man, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to work. I'm bringing home the paycheck. My wife also works too. So it wasn't just me, but as the man, as the provider and the protector, I'm like, hey, I'm going to work. I'm bringing home the money. I'm working on this business. I'm building this for us. I do spend time with you guys, but it's kind of like, well, how much time are you spending with us? It's like, is it just, hey, we get the leftovers, or are we getting what we really should be getting? And so I had to look at the whole picture and say, wow, am I really giving my family the leftovers, or am I giving them what they really truly deserve? And so for me, I didn't speak with someone, but anybody out there who's in gospel music, they know the name Ty Tribbett. And so I was in a Bible study that he taught when I was in Jersey. And I didn't ask him physically, but I asked someone who was close to him. I said, hey, can you ask him, when did his, career and business and stuff take off? What was the thing that kind of clicked for him when it started happening? And the response he gave me was, when I put my family first, that's when everything clicked. And I was like, all right, I got to flip the script. I got to put them first, and then everything else comes after that. Because the order of Elohim is him, man, woman, child. And if you have a family, it's him, and then your family immediately comes second. You have to put them in that. And then anything after that, whatever order you want to put it in, it's up to you. But it has to be him, your family, if you're married, have children, and anything after that, your job, your career, your boys, your girlfriends, whatever. Not girlfriends as far as guys having girlfriends. I'm talking about females who have friends. I'll make that very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
I'm not telling you to go out there and have a bunch of girlfriends. I'm saying about females who have friends. Okay. So whatever order you want to put it in after that is fine. As long as that order stays 1 and 2, and it's the order of Elohim. So when I started putting that together, it was like things became just work in order a lot more and a lot better for me. I didn't blow up overnight, and I still haven't necessarily blown up, but I have a much more direct focus. It's not just me wanting to build for my family, but really I'm building for me. It's more of saying, hey, how can I work this to where I'm doing what he wants me to do? My family's involved. I spend time with them that's needed, that's desired. And at the same time, I'm not working my plan. I'm working his plan.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, and so what are some of the checks for you that really makes you feel like you really are operating on his plan and that you are keeping your family ahead of the business? Yeah.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
For me, it's checking in with my family and seeing how I'm doing as a husband and father. Like I check in with my wife. I'm like, hey, how am I doing? Am I doing great? Am I doing okay? Am I doing awful? And even though in my mind, I might be like, hey, I think I've done better since, 2 years ago, I still let her be the one that grades me. You know what I mean? Because I can grade myself, but ultimately she's the recipient of my work. I'm like, okay, you let me know how I'm doing. And based on your answer, I'll know, okay, I'm on the right path. And even my children, I'll ask them, hey, how am I doing as a father? Am I doing okay? Am I doing great? What can I do better? What would you like for us to do more together? And so I allow them to grade me as a father because I want to make sure that I'm meeting their expectations, but also that I'm meeting his expectations, meaning Elohim, that, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm not perfect, but I'm on the right path. And so when I do that, it allows me to know that, okay, they've all checked off the list. It may not be 100%, but 80 over 80 out of 20%, I'll take that. Hey, 60-40, I'll take that, whatever that is. And so that allowed me to know that I'm working his plan at the same time, just spending time with him, every day, first, just being able to just say, hey, thank you, for waking me up this morning. You didn't have to, thank you for allowing me and my family to do X, Y, and Z, and just, and for those of you, I'm not sure how many of you out there are dealing with, the faith and belief, in the Messiah. But, it's just important as my faith is to spend time in the word and prayer every day to allow myself to be more grounded and knowing what the day, whatever lies ahead for that day, I'm prepared for because I spent time with him.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And especially after what you've been through, I imagine, man, putting that practice was so needed. So I'd love just to get more into the story of your family and what you've been through and, what led, really the inspiration of your book. And I do want to give another plug for it, Letting Go of Baby 2. And really, what was kind of that journey like and what led to really writing the book?
Well, the journey of writing it was fairly easy.
Okay.
When I say easy is because it was, once I got the idea to do it, it wasn't hard to do. It just became a longer process than I had planned because when I first started writing the book, I think I spent about a year and a half, writing it. And I literally just through Google Drive, I would just talk it out. And let Google Drive just put the words down. And I'm like, look, I'll come back and I'll finish it later. I just want to get the stuff on paper and just have it to where I'm not sitting there somewhere typing or trying to, figure it out. I'm like, all right, it's not going anywhere. It's on the drive. I'll come back and do it later. And after a year and a half, life happened and things happened. Life happens, and it kind of got put on the shelf where it just kind of stayed there. And I was like, I work on it every now and then. But I even had reminders in my phone that would go off every week that would say, start the book, finish the book, whatever. And I would just kind of ignore them, like, I can't do it today. I gotta. And it became like a routine of me just saying, nope, not today. Nope, not today. Nope, not today. And that was in 2017. So 2018, midway through 2018 is where that year and a half came. We're talking now almost 4 years later that the book finally got finished. And when I started back writing the book, I felt like I was so far behind with getting it done. But again, it's all in his time. He works things out for our good. And so the inspiration behind it, to answer your other question, because originally my wife wrote the first book. Originally. So she wrote the first book, which was called Letting Go of Baby. And so she wrote her book in 2015 and got released. And then 2 years later, her and her best friend, who's a counselor, wrote the follow-up. It was called, let me get the title right, What's Next? A Guide to Dealing with Grief After a Loss. And in that book is the 5 stages of grief. And so they wrote this book together, and they had a seminar in New York where about 20 women came out to the seminar. And at the seminar, out of the women that came out, there was one man that showed up. One man by himself, not with his wife, by himself.
Wow. And
my wife told me, this one guy showed up. And that was the first spark of inspiration for me beginning to write this book. I'm like, man, like one guy showed up. I'm like, I'm like, how many men are dealing with this and aren't saying anything? You know what I mean? And just are suppressing it and kind of like back away from it. The second spark of inspiration came about a year ago when we spoke to friends of ours who had gone through baby loss themselves. And we were talking with them one night, and I was talking with the husband, and he was just kind of telling me some things about how he felt and how things went. And that's when Elohim was like, all right, it's time to finish the book. Because him talking to me about it was like, man, I wish I had finished the book. I had it to give to him. Now, since then, he's read it. But at that time, it was kind of like that was the last push I needed to finish the book. And from then on, it became like, like maybe like an every other day thing to maybe like, a few times a week. And then it became just every day until the book was finished. Like every day I would work on it pretty much. And so, and in writing it and putting the stories down, it was like the moments were like right in front of my face as I'm writing and as I'm doing stuff. It was amazing. I thought I would have a different reaction to it, but it actually felt healing for me to write the book. And then once it was done and finished, I'm like, okay, this is going to be good, so.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of what, my coaching with men, it's like learning to embrace some of those hardships, really recognize some of the stuff you've been through, because God really does reveal a treasure in there. There's something he's trying to teach you and show you. So in the writing of the book, like you said it was like healing for you. What was some of the ways it was healing for you?
Well, for me, some of the things that I dealt with, during the process when we went through baby loss was I dealt with like guilt. I dealt with shame and blame. I dealt with inadequacy as a man. And so in dealing with those feelings that I had, it just allowed me to really reflect on how I felt, because I never really reflected on it. I just I knew I dealt with it, or I was dealing with it. I never really dealt with it. I was dealing with it, but then never dealt with it. And so as I'm writing the book, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize I was dealing with these things. And so it started to become a lot of the key points of talking about the book, how us as men, we deal with guilt. A lot of times we deal with shame and blame, but the shame and blame, normally the shame is a hidden thing, and the blame, you might be like, oh, no, it's his fault that this happened, or it's her fault this happened. But the shame of it, we kind of keep that in the closet. You know what I mean? And then the inadequacy, that kind of stays back there in the closet too. It's like, I'm a man. Like, I can deal with it. I got it. I got this. And for me, it became a lot of questions about my manhood. Am I really the man I think I am? Am I really able to be a father? Am I really able to be a husband to my wife? And all the other questions that even came out of me questioning, what Elohim was and what he meant. And like, do you really care about us? Like, why is this happening? Like, why are we dealing with this? Why are you allowing this to happen? Like, do you really care about us? And then questioning myself about my relationship with him, and just like on and on and on. And you'll see in the book, there are a lot of questions that I asked during this process that you'll see in the book that I asked. That it's just questions that are appropriate to ask because we're in our feelings. But it's my thing is, I say it's okay to ask Elohim questions, but it may not be okay to question him, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And while that may seem like, well, sounds like the same thing. No, not really. So asking Cartwright a question, like you can ask anybody a question, but questioning Cartwright why he did something is like, I mean, whether it's right or wrong, it's like it's Cartwright. He's the one dealing with it. He reacted to it, did it how he felt, and while we're human beings and the relationship is different, Elohim is the supreme being. It's like he does what he wants, when he wants, how he wants to do it to, and so, it's not like we're going to get struck down for questioning him. It's a part of who we are as human beings. But I think when we dwell on those things, asking those questions, having those doubts, having those fears, but when we dwell on them, that's where we start, diving into areas where the enemy can now come in and really distort things and make things really just, be it negative in our lives.
Yeah. And that's interesting. I heard a pastor put it this way after after his wife died. He said, at the end of the day, he doesn't work for me. I'm the one who works for him. And so, like just that check in our spirit of just reminding ourselves that, to ask him questions. He wants the relationship, but yet to question him for what he did, like that's the whole nother level. So I'm glad you made that point. What would you say is, you talked about the questioning of your manhood. What is the big difference in baby loss between a man and a woman, or a mother and a father?
Well, the biggest difference that I found is that, we all have feelings and emotions, men and women, children, the boys and girls. And the feelings that we have, Elohim gave them to us. He gave them to us to express, but to express in a healthy and positive way. And so for women, there's another, form of grief when dealing with baby loss, because the relationship between a child and a mother is one that can't be matched, because number one, they're carrying the child. They're physically connected to them, literally. Once a baby is born, they have to cut the umbilical cord because they are connected to the mother. You're carrying this human being inside of you that's going to be, an offspring from you. And that relationship between a mother and baby can't be unmatched. There's a lot of emotion from, from just everywhere that's coming. If you read my wife's book, you'll understand more men what I'm talking about. But that emotion that they deal with, it's something that we can't help them with. And when you read my book, you'll understand why. For us as men, we're taught from a majority standpoint to like man up, don't complain, stop talking about it. Like, you got this, deal with it. And that's what we do. We suppress.
Yeah.
Like no matter what happens, we suppress. I was like, you know what? Like again, I got it. I got this. I got it. We don't ask for help. And it's like we kind of, like you said before, we're on this island. And it's like, nah, I can fix this. Knowing good and well, you really can't. You can do the best you can and make an attempt. And when it comes to baby loss, the one thing that I recognize that I could not do is I could not make my wife's situation better. I couldn't do it. No matter what I did or what I said or didn't say, because I really didn't know what to say. It was just a matter of just being there for her. And like just being there for her felt helpless, because I'm like, I'm here, but am I really doing anything? Am I really being a help to her? Or am I just in the way of her dealing with her feelings? And so for me, that was the biggest thing as far as dealing with my feelings as a man, that's where a lot of the inadequacy came from. I can't fix this. As a man, we're built and made to conquer. And if we're not conquering, we're not doing the right thing. Yeah. And so that was one of the huge questions that I had. And so, for men, it's more of a physical, thing, but the emotional from how we feel about it, the questions we have, we suppress those. But then in the long run, it's really not good for us, because the more we suppress, the more we're building up stuff to just erupt one day, because we never dealt with it. We never healed from it, and we never got free from it. Whereas, women or mothers, they build community around it. They talk about it. They have seminars, and they got workshops, and they've got, awareness months and all this stuff. And us as men, it's kind of like, what do we have? Not much. And here's the last thing I'll say before we move on is that women that I've talked to, and even on other podcasts, there are women, they said they never thought that the baby loss affected the husband or the man. They felt like that the male was disconnected because they weren't the one who was having the baby. And so women who I've talked to or dealt with in other podcasts or have read the book, they said, wow, like I never would have thought that my husband dealt with this, that he had any feelings about it. And one person said that she never even thought to ask him. Never even thought to ask him.
Dang.
And one day, I think she said one day when they were talking about it, she said the information that he gave her, she was just like, she was blown away. She's like, I never knew you felt like this. This is decades later. So,
wow.
We all have feelings. We all have emotions, and what people tend to forget is that not only did the mother or the woman lose a child, but the father or the man did too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm curious how, we did talk about collaboration at the beginning, but also, just from that lesson that you learned alone of man, I just can't carry all this by myself. How have you applied that revelation into other areas of your life?
Oh, I applied it to everything.
Yeah.
Literally. Mm-hmm. For me, I unfortunately, I didn't reach out to anyone during, when I was going through it, but someone did reach out to me, and I've, have told people that I've talked to all over, I'm like, whatever you do as a man, if you're dealing with something that you can't handle, there's a 3-letter word you can do, and that is called ask.
Yeah.
Ask somebody for help. Whether it's mental help, emotional help, spiritual help, physical help, ask for help. Like, we are not, superheroes. You know what I mean? We could take a licking and keep on ticking, but after a while, you get too many licks. It's like, man, I can't deal with this no more. You're a human being. You're not made or built to last, beyond a certain point. And so asking is one thing we have to do as men. We have to ask. Even the scriptures say, seek and you shall find. Knocking, the door will be open. Ask and you shall receive. It's very simple, And while we can dive into the Hebrew and the Greek and theology all we want, like, it's a simple text. It just simply says, you do X, Y will happen. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, keep knocking, keep asking. That's really good, man. Gosh, man, how many men we need to hear that right now?
Yeah.
So, after all you've been through, I would love just to know, I love asking my guests this question. After what you've discovered and found out about just life, yourself, Elohim, what would you tell your 25-year-old self now?
Oh, I was asked this on another podcast too, but it sounds cliche-ish. I will say this, but it is 100% true. Mm-hmm. And trust me, even now that I'm 40 years old and I'm going on to the rest of my life, of like, my 55-year-old self might tell my 40-year-old self X, Y, Z too. And so I would tell my 25-year-old self, hey, this is what's happening with you now. I'm like, the first thing you need to do is pray.
All right. Yeah.
That sounds cliche, and it's probably like the last thing my 25-year-old self wants to hear.
Probably.
You know what I mean? But because now it's 15 years later, it's like, man, if I had just done that. And it's easier. Listen, it is way easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Way easier said than done. But the great thing about it is that his grace is so sufficient for us, is that even when we continue to mess things up, and the right thing to do, it's just in those moments, you just aren't thinking about those things because we're human beings and we have these feelings. Now, of course, as time goes on in our lives, we should be maturing and being able to learn from our past mistakes. But also let's understand, too, that there are different circumstances in our lives that come where it's like it's not similar to the one you had 15 years ago. It's like, oh, this is a whole new level that I'm dealing with. But you do have, when similar situations come up, you're like, hey, okay, I dealt with something similar like this before. How did I handle that? All right, I need to make sure I handled it this way this time. And so I would tell my 25-year-old self, pray. And it probably is not going to happen. But that's what I would tell him. I'm like, pray. I'm like, it's simple, but it's not. Yeah. But because I've already been there, like I know. And here's the thing too, I would also say, don't just pray. I'm like, find some others to help pray with you, because you can't do this on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. And at 25, our prayer life, though we can't have the ability to commune with God, right? It's just not as deep as it is now, because we've been through with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really good. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I would love just to find, for my audience, just to find, best way to buy the book and where to find more about you.
Yeah. So let's just start with the book. So the book, for those of you who are getting the video version of this, I hold my book up here. It's Letting Go of Baby 2. If I can get it right here. Letting Go from My Father's Heart.
Yeah.
And then also there's both my wife's books that are here as well.
Oh man. So, you're behind.
I am, right? I got to catch up and write another book, right?
Yeah.
But you can reach me you can, first of all, buy the books at Tsombawi.com. You can buy them there. They're also on Amazon as well. I'll give you two things. If you buy them from my website, it helps to feed our two children. All right. So from Amazon, it does too. Just for my website, it just allows us to have a little more extra to feed our children. Okay?
Right. There you go.
But if you do it from Amazon too as well, the Kindle version is also available on Amazon. So if you don't want to get the physical book, you can get the Kindle version on Amazon. But on my website, you can only get all 3 books as a series from my website. Oh. So if you don't want to just buy my book, you can get all 3 books as a series, and they're good for reading individually, as a husband and wife or in small groups, having conversations. So if you want all 3 books at one time for a one-time price, you have to go to Tsombawi.com. If you want to get them individually, you can go to my website or Amazon and also get the Kindle. As far as anywhere else, I can be reached on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I do have a Twitter as well, but I don't really post on Twitter. Everything that I post on Instagram and Facebook just automatically goes to Twitter. I don't really go on Twitter like that. So if you send me a message on Twitter, it's likely I'm not going to get it until a year later when I go check and see what's on there. But Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or even in Messenger, I would highly suggest just contacting me through one of those mediums, and hopefully I will respond to you, because a lot of times people message me on Messenger and they're just sending me just like crap, and I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Sorry. But yeah. So, and then I think that might be about it for me. But yeah.
Man, Tsombawi, it was a pleasure to have you, man. You were awesome. Thank you for being open and vulnerable about your life and everything you've been through. It's been a blast talking to you.
Thank you, Carver. I appreciate it, and pray that your audience of men continue to be forged, got some value out of this, and I look forward to coming back again and talking again.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Men Are Forged podcast. If you enjoyed this interview today, I recommend going and check out episode 89 with Eric Nicolai. It's another discussion on lost and discovering rest, building that work-life balance with family, and still pursuing those things you really want in your life. So go check out episode 89 with Eric Nicolai. And I appreciate you listening, and please give a follow, subscribe.